is quite fair, friendly, and accommodating. And right now, the studio is actually very cold, but it has to be like that. So, our studio engineers don't tell us we want to destroy their equipment. This is Issues in the News on Voice of the People 90.3. My name is Esther Wachuku. You know how we do it when it is time for this program. We basically talk about issues that affect us, issues in the polity, and issues in every sector of the economy, so long as it affects us. And then agencies and government parastatals responsible for ensuring that things are implemented and done the right way. We get to talk about them. Or we also get to hear from you and see how probably your recommendations you gave on the program are being listened to and something is being implemented. Remember that on Voice of the People, now you have a voice. And so we provide a platform through which you can express yourself, through which you can be part of the conversation for change, a movement to change the prospect, to change the way things normally used to be, where we have a right direction for Nigerians to have a futuristic prospect. Okay? So, welcome once again to the program. And what we are talking about today is something I feel all of us have to be part of. It's all encompassing, it's all inclusive. I am not alone in the studio, all right? I have a very important guest with me, quite a cute gentleman, and his name is Uwem Esen Owo. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you.
Please speak here. We're comfortable to talk, to express ourselves. UMSN Owo is a director of communication and strategy for Campaign for Peaceful and Credible Election in Nigeria. So that designation already spells what we are going to be talking about this morning on Issues in the News. Once again, OM, welcome.
Yeah, Esther. Thank you for having me.
All right, so the elections will coming up very soon. In a few months, and by next week Wednesday, campaigns will commence. Campaigns will kick off, properly. And this time around, we will hear a lot of things. We're going to hear several promises. We're going to hear how they will resolve or magically resolve issues that we're currently facing. So it is expected. We're actually looking forward to each of these political parties and how they intend to resolve most of the issues that is currently bedeviling the nation, actually. But while we wait for that, it is also important as individuals and members in a society to think about our attitude towards elections, especially during the electioneering process. There are so many vices that occur on such days, and although INEC has come to reassure us that it's going to be peaceful, election materials will be available across all the wards all through the federation, and they've also assured us of proper security within, they've assured us of security along all the polling units. The military has also come out to say the same thing, that we should not be worried. Elections will be properly conducted. They will try to ensure that everyone comes out safely to vote. But it's a different thing when we register. When we get accredited, it's also a different thing to turn out. Some persons, in time past, considering the historical pattern when it comes to elections in this part of the world, what happens on such days is that persons get accredited, they register, they get accredited, but the problem comes when it is time for them to vote. So you see a lot of situations occur at some polling units where some polling bags are taken by persons we do not know about. Some areas, all of a sudden you hear there's a fracas there is dispute between people. Some individuals just come out and say, oh, we've been queuing here for a while, and then some people just come up, go to the front of the queue and start harassing the INEC officials who are there. Sometimes the INEC officials don't come out on time. So the program today, we're trying to understand our civic responsibility when it comes to the electioneering process. We've actually had instances, because during the time, we have independent election observers. I'm sure that is basically where you come in, and they get to do their own due course to ensure that the elections are peaceful. Being that is what you represent, can you briefly explain instances where you've personally experienced some anomalies during electioneering processes and how you think we could have a peaceful electioneering process?
Thank you very much, Esther. And once again, I want to say good morning to the city of Lagos, my city. I've been out for a while.
Yeah.
Well, elections in Nigeria is more like a ritual. Yeah, and all over the world, the modern society use election as a means of, changing government and, making statements. Some elections are selection processes, while some are what you call a revolution. Okay. Of course, we remember when Obama was to be elected, it was more like a revolution. Yeah. And then 2014 in Nigeria, 2014, 2015 was also a revolution, to some sort. And however, there is actually a pattern here in our own society when it comes to elections. Um, I dare to say that most advanced economies,
Yes.
I mean, most advanced societies, as it were, don't see election as a do or die thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, as such, you hear people talk about election apathy.
Yeah.
People don't stay away from there, which we also have in Nigeria. But then the difference between our Nigeria and such is that their system work, right? They don't see government as being anything really important in their day-to-day dealing.
Activities, yeah.
They just see politicians, okay, they're doing their job.
Yeah.
I am doing my own job. Okay, so those that go to vote are those that are interested in politics. Except there is a dire need where there is the concept of the revolution, as I spoke about earlier. But in Nigeria, more often than not, everybody want to vote that is of age. But you see, there is a pattern. There are people who are paid to go and make sure they vote. There are people who are paid to go and make sure that they disrupt the vote. And there are people who would just want to go and vote and then exercise their civic responsibilities. And this very last class of people are the people that always miss at the elections, election days. Why do they not go there? Because they are not actually sure of what is going to be the outcome. Number one, of the elections results. Number two, the safety of life and property at that, election time. So this has been a trend, and this very demography, interestingly, is very, very large. Yeah.
Yes.
What you would readily refer to as maybe the middle class and the upper class. Okay, who don't go out to vote, and then we have a situation where our own lives, our destinies, are actually being determined with people who do not even understand why the election is being held anyway, right? And there are people who actually go there for the job, for the business, because they get paid to go and do what they want to do. Whoever gets there is none of their business. I think this could actually explain why we have it wrong often a time in choosing. I don't want to say electing leaders in positions. This time, I think there's going to be a difference.
Okay.
Okay, number one is the issue of the electoral bill that has now become a law that has been signed. And then the issues of actually having to snatch ballot boxes is not going to count anymore, because you're not going to have one person stuffing, the ballot box with one single vote. Then another factor that is going to change is that election, your vote is going to count this time around. Definitely is going to count. And if these indices are in place, I know those guys that see elections as job would want to go and cause trouble. But we are here, we a campaign for peaceful and credible elections, CIPSEN for short, out to make sure that we have agents or representatives at each polling unit. And what do we do there? We are not fighting anybody. We just want to observe.
Yeah.
And take note of everything that happens there. We're going to take photos, we're going to take pictures. How are we going to do that? It's best known to us. And whatever results or whatever activity happens in a particular polling booth, we could actually trace to where it's coming from. So nobody's going to be hiding anymore.
Yeah.
And the reason we are doing that is to encourage the real people that can determine a proper outcome of elections in Nigeria to come and vote. I don't see Esther, on an election day, you want to go and exercise your civic responsibility. And, hey, if you, with or without you, the election will go on anyway. And then you go and risk your life because some vagabonds from somewhere, hooligans, hoodlums, are coming with machete bottles to come and disrupt it. You would definitely stay at home. And how do you do it? You just sit down and be watching how it is going. But you were supposed to determine this. All right? So we want to make sure that Esther could actually go to an a polling booth or unit and cast her vote peacefully. But you must stay to make sure it is counted.
Okay, there are instances when the ballot papers are being counted.
Yes.
And of course, INEC officials may not report if there was any fracas or commotion during the electioneering process. So independent observers are the ones that actually, voice out. Oh, in this particular polling unit, we don't trust the voting, the voting results, right? This is what was observed. In fact, they actually tell it out so INEC does not cover up anything. Or if at all INEC officials are being harassed, not to report if there was any incident in that particular ward or polling unit. So what they actually do, what independent observers do, is to actually take it out there and say, we do not trust the vote count in this ward or in this polling unit. So I would suggest that the polling unit is revisited, or another vote is being cast, or the vote there should not be counted because no one can trust it. Could that be one of the things that is part of what your responsibility is?
Yes, it's one of it, and many more.
Okay.
One of the things that we want to start with is education.
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to assure you, a lot of people don't actually know the purpose of elections and even the offices that people vie for. Let's just use the opportunity to address before we go to that answer. Okay, imagine somebody who vie for the office of a senate or house of state or whatever, and then during his or her campaign, he would like, I'm going to build road, I'm going to build school, I'm going to. That's not your responsibility, for crying out loud. Definitely this person is lying. He doesn't know exactly what he's going there to do, because your job is not to execute project. Your job is to legislate, have oversight function. If the executive brings a budget and you look at that budget, it does not factor in the good of your constituency, you make case for it.
All right.
And make sure that it is factored in. That is what you are there for. You are not a contractor. Okay, so anybody that comes to you to campaign, I'm going to build road as a legislator, he is lying. She is lying. That is not the responsibility. And that is why we really don't hold these people accountable. A legislator, just like your last program, I listened to when they talk about the military. Of course, the military had their own fault, but totally may not be. But in this case, Nigeria has been built, that has been governed by the military for so long, and the focus has always been on the executive. And then we forget that the legislator is actually the crux. The reason for democracy is the legislator. So if your government fail, don't shout too much on the executive. Ask your legislators why they did not interrogate. Because that's why it is the people. Okay, so part of the thing we do is that education. Then during the elections, when ours is there to observe, like I said, and then if there are any problems in any way, for instance, you did talk about the INEC official being harassed. Okay, but today in the new act, the electoral act, of course, there is what you call announcing results in duress.
Yes.
If he does that in duress, of course, that election will be cancelled. It is there in the law. Not before you now have, you remember a particular prof that was like, I don't know what I'm reading because it did
Yes,
that on Honduras.
Honduras.
So there is a provision. That's why we are saying that this very electoral act is a very a good one. So when we are SIPSEN, that is a short form of our organization. When we are monitoring elections, we observe. We don't fight. We observe because we don't have the power to even fight anybody.
Yes.
We observe and see what is going on, take photos, take videos, archive them. All right? So when we make so much, when we raise alarm that there was problem there, of course they have a way of, it's not true.
It's not true.
Especially these days, everything is fake news. And then the pictures has been whatever. We bring evidence. Because if we have photograph of a particular scene in 3 or 5 different angles. Of course, you can't say that it was wrong.
Was doctored. It's actually true.
You get it? So that's actually what we are doing. We have to participate.
Yes.
We have to take our country back, right? Every day you hear young people traveling out of this country. Hey, guys, if you're listening and you're thinking of traveling, it's a very wrong move. Reason being that Nigeria is the only country you have that you could be proud of.
Yes.
You can't go to another country and become third-class citizen, even for class, and then be doing some job that are very indignified to your person. So Nigeria is going to work.
Amen.
Yeah.
It has to. All right, this is Issues of the News on Voice of the People 90.3. What we are looking at today is behavioral processes during elections. And of course, I have with me Mr. Uwem Owo. Did I call that right?
Yes, yeah.
So he is actually the Director Campaign Strategy Communication for SIPSEN. Did I call that right?
Campaign for peaceful and
Yes.
credible elections in
That
Nigeria.
is actually a very good name, to be honest with you. Now, there is a problem in this part of the world when it comes to orientation.
Yeah.
There are departments created and agencies created for this, But why is there a debt in that department? Because right now, you are an independent body. You're almost like an NGO.
Yes.
And it's just due to the fact that you have a passion for patriotism.
Yes.
That is basically why you are doing this. And it's
Yes.
actually very important. Like you said, a lot of people don't know what they are going to vote for when they go to the polling unit. They just know that, okay, I want to go vote this person. They only know presidential and governorship. They don't understand the councillorship electionary processes, you understand? So when they get there, they literally just, somebody can say, oh, why don't you put your hand here, press it, that kind of a thing. So it means that the orientation is not being propagated. It's not
Yes.
properly done, endemically done to get across, every nook and cranny within the country, so people understand what they are going there to do. How do we inculcate this process and revitalize the departments that meant to orientate, individuals, citizens about the processes and behavioral patterns towards electioneering?
Okay, I have a background in branding, brand communications, right? And I understand the importance of communications in effective change, either positive or negative change, as it were. You see, I want to also understand that our politicians understand the effectiveness of communication and they deliberately refuse to arm people with the right information, because if you are well informed, you'll be enlightened. You know exactly what to do. Of course, we have national orientation agencies, okay? And then we also have voters education wing with INEC. How much of adverts do they do on television, radio, or go out to mobilize and orientate people, even use other non-conventional pattern to educate people about voting? Because if they do such, they know that the people will be well educated and armed, and they will have choices. And if the mass of the people understand what it's all about, a lot of them would not have business being where they are. Okay. Of course, Esther wouldn't go and vote for somebody that she already knows has issues with personality.
True.
Of course. And by the time they know that, they don't even allow you to access these people. So when they serve the public of the right education, I think is deliberate, because a certain class of people just want to continue to put us in this shame and bondage in the name of governance. And that is why we've taken it as our responsibility. We have to do the job ourselves, because it is our country, to educate. So sometimes I really don't blame the electorate because they don't have access to information. Now, what is wrong in primary school, the so-called civic education, teaching the children from primary school the art of voting, to be so that as they grow, they get interested in it. Okay, so it's a long process. It's a long process. These institutions have failed. When last did you hear National Orientation Agency? It's there. Somebody's collecting salary. There's so much allocation voted to these organizations on a monthly basis, yearly basis, but they just sit down there doing nothing. And when by the time they come out to make they tell you exactly what, and you can't substantiate. Why were they established anyway? So I think, first of all, there is need for even in the private sector. If the reason the private sector is important, because if the environment is good, your business will strive. So for you to have a very conducive environment for your business to strive, you have to make sure you contribute in building the people. And part of this thing is for you to, on your own, you could actually sponsor. Imagine a bank sponsoring a campaign for peaceful and credible election, and educating people how to vote, how to line up, how to make sure they monitor their vote. It goes a long way, because if it comes out well, then it's going to be good for them. So you're actually investing in that is why it's no longer called CSR. It is called CSI, because it is investment. So electoral process should not just be an INEC thing now, a government thing. And of course, we know the kinds of characters that are in government. They are not interested in the development of the people. They're just interested in themselves. Imagine the education sector now. You have people who are supposed to fix that system are having their children outside the country. Yeah. And the children, and Nigerian children here, are rotting away. I think there is a deliberate plan for all these things.
Okay, so the question now is, both from INEC officials that would be the active factors for ensuring that every necessary material required for the electioneering process to take place is provided, and individuals who would participate in the process, what should be the right behavioral or attitudinal tendencies towards that process?
Transparency. That's actually the key word there. Because if, the INEC is an umpire, it's supposed not to be biased. It's not supposed to be partisan. It's not supposed to be a card-carrying member of any political party. And of course, you hear what is going on, that they want to appoint people who are card-carrying members of political parties. You already see that there is problem. You and I sitting down here no longer have confidence in the current INEC anymore. How could you come out to tell us that over 7 million people could not be registered whom you have their data in your database? Is that a deliberate way of defranchising people? The people, Nigerian people, have come out now to say, they were the people that are saying that people don't come to register, right?
Yeah.
And the people have chosen to come and register, and then you want to defranchise them. So if that is if you begin to hear these issues, are we sure that these materials will be well handled? Are we sure that they are not going to tamper on it? Are we sure that we are not going to have electoral material being warehoused in a candidate's house? These are some of the questions I need to clarify, because we don't understand anything. A lot of things that are happening these days are pointing fingers to the fact that INEC may not be transparent in the forthcoming elections.
Okay, so let's not predict.
We can't, because we could actually see the body language.
We still have a few months to that. So there could be a tilt in the dynamic that we are currently seeing. But the question I want to ask is this. I think at this stage in this part of the world, when it comes to the rate at which technology has balanced itself. I want to actually say that the process for registering for your permanent voter card should no longer be something that would be tedious to do by any individual. It also, again, boils down to orientation. There is a portal where you can, do your registration and all of that, but you would have to go to the local government or wherever it is for capturing and all that stuff. Why is it not easy to do it? If you're at home, you have the system, you can do all your capturing or whatever you need to do. Possibly maybe thumbprinting could be one of the reasons why you have to either go to the INEC office or you have to go to any of the registration centers at the local government. If you look at how, I think it was July or June, towards the last phase of that massive registration when the House of Representatives had to mandate INEC to extend registration time for persons who do not have their PVC. If you look at that process, a lot of people complained as to how the process was conducted. And like you talked about disenfranchisement, some individuals registered in different locations or different local governments or even in another state. And then during the course of time, of course, people migrate, people move, and your place of residence could change. Where you currently reside and work could change. And so now possibly you came to Lagos while you did that in Aba or. And so when it comes to them having to authenticate the PVC itself, you get to hear, or you need to go back to where you did the registration. You need to try and verify some things. Oh, we don't have your data on record and all of those anomalies. So the question is, how do we correct this? Because these are the things that make people think that there is no form of transparency.
We're still going back to the same thing. Problem of transparency, the problem of maybe there's something going on somewhere that we don't understand. However, the simple question I would ask to answer your question is, when this process of registration was ongoing, how many times did you see a radio or hear a radio commercial, TV commercial, read a newspaper, billboard, the process of registering and the challenges you may face and how to mitigate them? How? What is the formal education rate in Nigeria that you would actually assume? As a matter of fact, if you are among the people that registered in this regime, you notice that the link was sent to you by your friend or a group. It was never announced. If you want to in branding, if you bring a new product, for instance, and you want to sell it, one of the things, there is what we call the proof stage in a brand life. There is the proof stage, and that proof stage is a period whereby you educate the supposed user, your prospect market. This is how the ABC of this product. Do we have the ABC of registering, online registration?
To be honest with you, some INEC officials earlier towards the registration process, when they were actually gingering, clamoring that persons should go register if they do not have their PVCs, went across some media houses to some media houses to actually resonate that it is important. They actually explained the process of going through it, told persons they kept on reiterating, go and register, and this is the process you have to go through in doing that. They also talked about if there are any challenges by any individual when they get to any of the local governments where INEC officials are down to register persons, they should actually call out and it will, be resolved. But would we say that effort was not enough?
When you want to communicate an idea, you keep saying it, you keep speaking it day and night, right? You really can't maybe gather some sets of people to go about talking. That is good. Did you have a pattern of making sure you drive down that message using different formats, different channels, different media to ensure that this message, how did you evaluate that the message actually got to the people? You understand? It's just like, okay, I don't come work today. Make I come do this one. You get it? Did you evaluate? Did you take stock if the message you actually sent through got to the final user of the product? How much of the time, when you go to a village, the rural areas, sometimes they don't understand this. They don't even have access to this, right?
So there's supposed to be a message design.
Did you employ town criers? All right. Did you deploy the tactics of creative art, maybe drama, radio drama, or even live drama? What do you call it? Open air kind of.
Use community leaders, theater. Church leaders,
Did they do
every
that?
subsect of the community, every subsect that makes up the community.
Did they do that? And how would you now come to say that we communicate? How did you communicate or educate the people? So I think the education was really not there, and there is no justification for disenfranchising people.
Anyone.
Because they did not. And besides, did you actually declare a public holiday for registration? Some
states actually did.
Some people work.
Some states actually did.
Within the state.
Yeah, some states did. Some states did actually.
Declared public holiday.
Yes, went towards the last batch of registration.
How many people with 1 day public holiday accommodate? And you find out that it's tedious. I tell you, a lot of the people, some of the staff that were even doing the registration found the technology strange. Some of them, you actually would teach them what to do when they show you the gadget. Because you find out the kind of people they recruited. I don't know did you even go out to see?
Yes, I did.
Maybe you could share your experience.
I did, possibly because I'm a media representative.
Okay.
The process was, for me, it was quite easy while I was doing my own registration process. But what I noticed was the rowdiness. And then it seemed like some of the materials, the equipment needed were few. And they had a lot of people to attend to. Sometimes the equipment could, let me not say crash, but possibly they needed to wait a little bit and continue. These were some of the challenges that some of the centers where the registration processes were going through. And so persons queued for so long a time. Sometimes people could just come in possibly from the back and, come to the front. And of course, people got agitated. There was disgruntled. What's going on? How comes we're still here? Some persons are coming from nowhere and all of that. So these are some of the experiences at some of the centers where the the registration was taking place. All right, let's try to hear what our people have to say. This is Voice of the People 90.3. If you are just joining us, you're currently listening to Issues in the News, and we're talking about behavioral processes during elections, especially by we individuals who would actually go out there on that set day to vote, a desired contestant, and as well as INEC officials, who will be in charge of conducting the elections. What is the right behavioral process during the elections? That is basically what we're talking about today on Issues in the News. You can virtually be part of the conversation. You just go to www.voiceofthepeople.ng. We are live. We stream live 24 hours. So you can virtually watch and also comment. Tell us what you think. Send a message as well across our social media platforms on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram at VOP903. The number to call is 0700 903 903 903. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. Your name, please, and location.
Yeah, my name is Bethel.
Bethel, can you kindly turn down the volume of your radio?
Okay. Yeah, I'm calling from Ekoto.
All right, go ahead, Bethel.
Yeah, I've been listening to you people there.
Thank you.
Yeah, man there has been doing a good job.
Okay, thank you.
And he has spoken, most especially concerning the attitude of people in authority. It's difficult for, most especially those that are not learned to vote. And the worst culprit are these our leaders in the north. They make things difficult for their people there. That is the masses there. You understand what I mean? Because lack of education. I remember Jonathan here built schools, but at the end of the day, they make sure that school did not come to see the light. They will always put them in education where it is only what they just tell them that, or where they tell them to put their hand is where they will put. The National Assembly itself, most of them there, they know what they are doing. They know they can help make this election free and fair, but they will always close their eyes because they know if it is free and fair, most of them will not be in that National Assembly. The Speaker and the Senate President, they are the worst culprits we have in this present regime. They are not coming out to tell the presidency the truth. They will always be covering up. They only have cash their own money and their pockets. I remember last time this guy, the former Senate President, that's how they make sure they tackle him to remove him. And these people will come in. Everything in Nigeria is tight. I don't even know how this election is going to work. Because this present election, or Nigerian election, is built on a very foundation. Look at the primaries. It was monetized. If I have my way, the people will vote as will not be APC, it will not be PDP, other political parties that do use money. But our people now, we have done so much infrastructure.
All right. Thank you, Bethel. Thank you. Thank you for calling in. We need to take all the calls. Thank you for calling in. 0700 903 903 903. That is the number to call. 0700 903 903 903. You can also send us a WhatsApp message on 0700 903 9039. The conversation this morning is the right behavioral processes during elections. And I am, of course, like I earlier introduced my guest on the program today, Mr. SNO, and he has talked quite exclusively and extensively on, the processes, especially from INEC officials, when it comes to orienting the members of the public, the strategy employed through which they can ensure that no one is disenfranchised, especially when it comes to them getting their permanent voter cards. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Good morning, please. Your name and location. Hello? 0700 903 903 903. Please ensure when you call that we can hear you and also turn down the volume of your radio. 0700 903 903 903. What should be the right behavioral tendencies towards the processing of elections? Hello, good morning. Can you turn down the volume of your radio, please?
Hello.
Turn down the volume of your radio.
What I want to say is this.
Please, your name and location. You're breaking.
Hello.
Can you hear me too?
Yes, I can hear you.
Turn down the volume of your radio. That is why you cannot hear us properly.
What I want to say is this. Are you hearing me?
Hello?
Hello. Are you hearing me?
0700 903 903 903. We lost that connection. 0700 903 903 903. Please, I'll reiterate. When you call on the program, kindly turn down the volume of your radio so we can hear you properly and you can also hear us. All right? So we need to have a clean method of communicating this morning. 0700 903 903 903. And what we are talking about. Hello? Hello? Please turn down the volume of your radio. Turn down the volume of your radio, please. Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead. Your name and location. Hello?
Are you hearing me?
I can hear you, sir. Your name and location, please.
Oh, I am Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, okay.
What I want to say is this. Many of us have not gotten the PVC. I was saying about the method to be used on the election day. If I should suggest, why not those that have an IN come with it? It can serve as the voter's card. Since they don't have voter's card. If they go with it, can it be possible? Because I don't have all this NIN.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Consider it.
All right, that connection was quite poor, but I think we could get what he was talking about. He said, those who do not have their PVCs, why don't they come with their NIN? I think that's a proper means of identification so they can what? They can vote. What do you think about that?
The thing is that the multiplicity of our identification number is actually a problem by itself, because I don't think that uh, this registration voters card, it should be a problem. How do you get your bank ATM card? How many days does it take you? To me, the complexity of the pattern is just one of the deliberate, I dare say, to differentiate people. And they were like, because it's very easy for it to be done. If we could actually use these centers of registration or centers that we did, like he said, the NIN, why can't you distribute these things there and let people get their card? And then
Or let people vote.
let people vote.
Yes.
You know, the multiplicity of our number, we have BVN, we have NIN, we have license, we have this, we have that. Can't it not be integrated? I don't think it should be a problem, because if we go for registration, okay.
Hello.
Hello,
Good morning.
I am Bartolome.
Please, can you turn down the volume of your radio? Thank you. Go ahead. Hello, go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead, yes.
No, what?
You haven't turned down the volume of your radio. Please turn it down. It's distorting.
Okay, sir. Okay, ma'am.
It's still on. Turn it down. Okay.
That.
Hello? Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, please. Your name and location.
morning.
Good morning, I can hear you. Your
My
name
name
and
is
location.
Anthony from Texas.
Anthony from Festac. Anthony, please go ahead.
Well, most of us don't get this easy. So that's the problem. Most of us, we beat our PVC, but we didn't get it. You know, sometimes when you went to register a PVC, you cannot have your PVC. And begin to be telling you that this is not a day that you supposed to get your PVC. The day that you even went there to collect your one, you cannot even get it.
All
So
right.
most of us that are here, most of the youth, they don't know, they don't even have their PVC.
All right.
That
Thank
is
you.
the problem, the major problem that we are having in this country now. Our PVC is our right, and it doesn't happen. There are many.
Hello? Oh, that connection is now poor. 0700 903 903 903. That is the number to call. 0700 903 903 903. You call us and we're talking about electioneering, attitude, behavioral processes towards elections, the attitude from the officials themselves, INEC, and we as civilians who would be the major factor, in participating to change the course of the nation in 2023, our attitude towards that. We've actually heard a lot of complaints right now concerning PVCs, and we're actually talking about, somebody called and said, why don't we try, national identification number. That's another means. So those who do not have their PVCs are not disenfranchised on said day of election. And Mr. SNO was actually talking about it. He actually said he's talking about the multiplicity of identities and across several official documentation
Platforms,
processes. Exactly. That can be quite confusing. But he's saying it's not complex. It's not something that should be difficult, to do. And this alternative means through which persons can participate in the election should be considered, right? That's basically the summary of what we are talking about this morning. So, as an individual who would be participating in the upcoming election, what do you think should be the right behavioral pattern from you and from INEC officials? That is what we're talking about this morning. 0700 903 903 903. 0700 903 903 903. That is the number to call. And in the studio, who the person you've been listening to, explain, in depthly this processes is Mr. Uwem SNO. He is a director of communication strategy for Campaign for Peaceful and Credible Elections in Nigeria. I think it is high time we begin to experience peaceful and credible elections in the country. We've gone through this process whereby there's always a fracas at polling units or at polling wards. We've gone through situations where sometimes persons who come out to cast their vote, at the end of the day, their votes are not counted. You have to stay on, in the sun to get to your own turn to vote, and then something just erupts at your polling unit. And then when you get home, it's announced in the news that, oh, we cannot take the results from this local government or from this polling unit because this took place. So what happened to people who had actually gone there to stand all through to ensure that they cast their vote? Doesn't mean that the effort is wasted.
You go and complain.
You complain, but the thing is, the effort has been wasted.
It's not a wasted effort. You see, so far you get to that polling unit to exercise your civic responsibility. It is as a voter, all right, who would want to cast a vote. It is your civic responsibility not just to cast the vote, but to ensure that it is counted and it is announced. And with the current law, it is actually transmitted. That result, they snap it, and then that very one that has been announced is transmitted. You make sure it happens. Okay. Now, if there is any fracas, bring your complaint. And that is where we want to actually employ INEC now to make sure that they open up electoral complaint commission, or whatever name they want to call it, that is close to the people. And the process of complaining will not be complex, right? That even if you can't read and write, you could actually lodge a complaint and it is taken care of. And that is actually one of the reasons we exist as well. You could actually contact us if you were at a particular venue, though our representative will be available at each of these locations. So if there is a complaint that there was fracas in any place, we will also have that data because we will be there. We will have that data to corroborate whatever. Sometimes they might actually not be issue, but because a certain candidate won in that very
That's
center,
where, yes.
okay, and they will just like there was trouble, and maybe there was no trouble anyway. So these are some of the factors. You see, we the electorate need to begin to learn to have confidence and participate. Right? Participation. We shouldn't be, standing aloof, because if this country falls, it's going to fall on our heads.
So the question is, how would INEC ensure that you can't trust the process, come out and vote? You'll be safe, all right? Your votes will count. Nothing will happen to your vote. So come out in your numbers and vote. But before you respond to that, let me call the number 0700 903 903 903. That is a number to call. You can also be part of the conversation virtually as well on www.voiceofthepeople.ng. Follow our social media platforms at VOP903. The elections are coming up very soon. Have you collected your PVC? If you haven't, what transpired? And the question you should ask, we're asking ourselves, for those who do not have their PVC, does it mean that they're not going to participate in the elections in 2023? Does it mean that their votes, they can't come out to vote just because they do not have the credible access to vote? Does INEC have an alternative, for persons who do not have their PVC due to one situation or the other? It could be an electronic problem, it could be a location problem, whatever the situation is. They have actually tried to register before, but one or two things happened, and it's probably difficult for INEC to correct. Would there be an alternative to ensure that these persons who have eligible age to vote, can participate in the electioneering process? What is the right attitude to adopt at that time? 0700 903 903 903. Let's go ahead.
Okay. I think technology, as you've said, have actually answered a lot of questions. I've provided answers, but we just maybe refuse to use it. For instance, we all have name national identification numbers. At least a certain percentage of the population of Nigeria has. Now, if this data is centralized, I don't think the issue of voters card is necessary. Right.
Okay.
I don't think so. Because we all have our thumbprint. By the time I print thumb on the device, all my detail is supposed to be out, regardless of the platform that is. Anywhere I'm going to that they need information about me, of course, it's written on my thumbprint. All I need to do is just to thumbprint. Place my thumb on the device. All right? Place my my thumb on a device, and every of my detail will come out. You give me, and if you now say that my detail is not there, that means I'm not a Nigerian.
That's true.
Okay, so all this multiplicity, like I said, you collect a voter's card, is a deliberate way of disenfranchising people and wasting money because it's a waste.
0700 903 903 903. What is your experience like? We've had experiences of electioneering processes in this part of the world, and just like Mr. OM said, they try as much as possible to monitor electioneering processes. They also try to orient people on the right way to go about it. Understand what you're actually queuing for on said day. What are you actually queuing for? Were you just told to come out with your PVC and then to tell you put your thumbprint here? Meanwhile, you don't know you don't know exactly what you're voting for, or you did not make up your mind on anything, or you have, but somebody has convinced you otherwise. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my sister.
Good morning. Please turn down the volume of your radio, please.
Okay. I'm Mr. Paul.
Mr. Paul, your radio is still on. Turn down the volume completely.
Okay. I've done that.
Thank you. Mr. Paul, your location, please.
Yaba.
All right, go ahead.
Please, I want to know the chairman of the INEC.
Okay, sir. What will you do with him?
This. If the chairman of INEC always come from the northern sides, I don't think whether the election is going to be free and fair.
No, that's bias, Mr. Paul. That's very biased. It doesn't matter where INEC's chairman is coming from. His name is Mahmoud Yakubu, but it doesn't matter where he's coming from.
Since when I was born, I think the INEC officers always come from that side.
There was Morrissey who...
Exactly. Thank
there
you
was Humphrey Wosu.
Are you hearing?
I want all of us to produce 3 INEC officers, one north, one from the south, and one from the east. This is what I want. So,
all right.
That is my contribution there.
Okay, my brother, maybe I have to answer this question.
You can answer,
okay,
please.
You see, an Igbo man, somebody north, south, east, and west doesn't in any way make the individual right. The right or wrong of a person is the person himself. Wherever the person comes from doesn't matter. So far, the person is a certified Nigerian, first of all. What we require is transparency. It doesn't matter where the person is coming from. So far, the person is doing the right job. Make it easy that every Nigerian can go and vote. That's the most important thing. Wherever the person comes from, to me, it shouldn't be an issue here. Because by the time we begin to say it should come from here, the multiplicity, we have over 400 ethnic groups in Nigeria. Would each of these groups have INEC chairman? No.
But you know, some individuals, about 24 individuals, sued INEC to court, saying that they did not give them enough time to go about their voter registration. They said they and 7 million Nigerians do not have their PVCs or access to register. And they sued the INEC officials to court. Like we're rightly saying, if this process is like this, how do we ensure that these 7 million individuals and more that did not register participate in the election? Let's wrap up with that.
Okay, the 7 million people actually did have their data. Okay, what the INEC say is it's late registration, so they can't process. Which we can't take it. It's not an excuse. the information is already on your database. Process it. That's the most important thing. And what we would tell Nigerians, please make sure that all these bad news would not discourage you. This election is going to be one of the best we ever had in Nigeria, and it's going to count. Go out, disregard the hurdles. Make sure you take the pains to get your PVCs. Go register. When you go, go vote at the polling unit. Make sure you wait till the votes are counted and the results are announced. And make sure it is transmitted instantly. Because if you vote and leave, they might cancel that your vote.
All right, and that's a wrap today on Issues in the News on VOP in 90.3. You've been listening to Mr. Uwem Esen Owo. He is Director of Communication and Strategy for Campaign for Peaceful and Credible Elections in Nigeria. So thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your enlightenment. Honestly, we're able to, buttress these issues as better and possibly, as we can. My name is Esther Mwachuku. Like I say, we do this every day of the week, 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Make sure that you are part of the conversation. Good morning.